fanatics, my name is Siobhan Ebert and welcome to the Oscars Obsession. Today I am coming with you with my final Oscar predictions in all the major categories. This has been an amazing year for film. So many great films this year. Some of them will be snubbed, some of them will be coming out with a strong 10, 11 nominations. I'm thinking Conclave, maybe Emilia Perez. I know that many folks are saying what's going to be happening with Nickel Boys, what's going to be happening with Sing Sing. Are we going to be listening to those PGA nominations? September 5, is that going to be a surprise nomination? Who knows? It was in Golden Globes, so it wouldn't be that much of a surprise. So let's get started into the Oscar nominations predictions that I have on my list, beginning with Best Supporting Actress. What a stacked category we have this year. Lots of chaos with Jamie Lee Curtis coming out at BAFTA with a nomination, with Felicity Jones missing from the SAG nominations. Selena Gomez somehow got into BAFTA and Golden Globes. Do I think that she's going to be nominated? I don't think so. I think she's at the end of my list right now with all the backlash that Emilia Perez received in the past month. One thing is for sure, we have two locks in this category and they're not going anywhere, and it's probably going to be a fight between them on Oscars night. Those two actresses are Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez and Ariana Grande for Wicked. Zoe Saldana gives such a great performance in Emilia Perez. She's a standout. Is this a category fraud? Maybe. She isn't the titular character, but she does give such a fantastic performance. She sings, she does rapping, she is dancing. She also is long overdue, and she's like getting her flowers this year, just like many other folks in the different categories, including Demi Moore, who we'll get to in just a bit. As Rita Morel Castro and Emilia Perez, I do believe that between her and Carla Sofia Gascon, they are such an amazing duo. Without those two in those roles, I don't believe that Emilia Perez would be this film that it is. Some might disagree, as neither of them are Mexican, but I do believe Zoe Saldana is a lock here over her co-stars Selena Gomez and Adriana Paz. So I'm having her here for now at number 1. Number 2 on my list is Ariana Grande for Wicked. I think this is a really universally acclaimed performance by Ariana Grande. It proved everyone that she is definitely a talent in terms of acting. Of course, she's been an actor in her early years on TV, on the Disney Channel. However, I think this really introduced us to how Ariana Grande can fit her vocal style against another with Cynthia Erivo, and with a character such as Glinda. She does have that operatic performance many times with the beginning of the film, and you see so many moments when her vibrato is so much more intense and unusual. I mean, it's really for the character Glinda. I do believe that she's our number 2. I think not only with the acting, I think she's also perfect for the role. I think the Academy is definitely going to be rewarding that, and she is a big threat for the statue as well. So let's have her at number 2 for now. So I really struggle to try to figure out if Isabella Rossellini was a lock for Best Supporting Actress for Conclave. I think she's just short of a lock, only because her screen time is so short compared to everyone else in that film. When she has that moment on screen with accusations, speaking up as a woman, I think that's a really inspiring fit, especially within that community, for a nomination for Oscar. I believe that she's getting in, especially with the recent death of David Lynch. I'm not quite sure if people are thinking about that, but her and David Lynch were actually together for quite some time, and she was such a icon in Blue Velvet. She had never been nominated for Best Actress for any kind of acting award at the Oscars, which is quite a shame. She has a really great career, and I think this is the moment where Oscar voters are going to say this. First of all, Conclave, what a film. It's widely appealing. Her role and character are very central, along with another individual I'm going to mention later, to the film's overall story arc. So I do believe that she's in. I think she's just close to being a lock, but not quite, only because her screen time is so short. But as we know, the Academy doesn't really care about that at the end of the day. They've nominated Judi Dench for several roles, including Belfast and Shakespeare in Love, with even one of them winning the Oscar. So we can't leave out Isabella Rossellini here. So my number 4 spot, I think, will be quite controversial. I think that 2 weeks ago, no one was expecting this nomination to occur. Who am I talking about? Jamie Lee Curtis in The Last Showgirl. I think that with her nominations for both SAG and BAFTA, what a shock. What a shock that she's in these categories. She wasn't at the Golden Globes, but that's okay. She, I believe, has been so vocal about the LA wildfires that have been so devastating to everyone in Hollywood. She's someone that the industry really loves. She got that Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once a couple years ago. And now she's in this smaller film where she really is a standout, I believe. That is the reason she's my number 4. I think that's higher than anyone else would have her at, but she is my number 4. At number 5, I have Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown. As Joan Baez, you know, A Complete Unknown has really been ramping up steam. It's been steamrolling everyone. Ever since that BAFTA top 5, I was shocked. I said, whoa, I didn't think it was going to get in the top 5. I thought it was going to be Dune Part 2. I mean, even though it's number 7 on my list, and we'll get to that later, I do have Monica Barbaro here. I think she has a passion behind her. The people who love A Complete Unknown love her performance. And so for that reason, I'm putting her at my number 5 over Felicity Jones. The past few weeks, as I've been looking at social media and reports that Academy voters aren't even finishing the Brutalist, that they're getting to an intermission and stopping the film. They're not looking at the rest. They said, oh, we got the gist of it. It's great film, whatever. We're going to put it in a Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, so on and so forth. I do believe that this is going to hurt Felicity Jones. And even though I wouldn't be surprised this year on Oscar morning when we're announcing the nominees, I do think that there is a little bit of a chance that she doesn't make it in, so she is at my number 6. At my number 7, it really deeply pains me to say this, Margaret Qualley for The Substance. I thought that she would be getting a BAFTA nomination and that she would be my number 5 or 6, but when Jamie Lee Curtis appeared, and with that really huge love for A Complete Unknown, she just kind of fell off my list. I think that she's a critical darling. I think that with The Substance, Pearlie Farjell was going to get her flowers. Demi Moore's going to get her flowers. As a film, it will get its flowers. But I do think it's going to fall short of what I was expecting, was to have maybe like 6 or 7 or even 8 nominations. I do think that here, the competition is just too strong for Best Supporting Actress this year, and she's not on my list. Next on my list, I have Danielle Deadwyler in The Piano Lesson. Now, she was nominated for SAG, and she was snubbed for Till years ago. I'll never forget that morning that Danielle Deadwyler is snubbed. Oh my God, what a scandal. Honestly, everyone was like, oh, she's a lock. She might even win the Oscar that year. Nope, she wasn't nominated. And The Piano Lesson, let's be honest, I don't think a lot of folks have been watching that film. I think actors love Danielle Deadwyler, but the love for that film is very low. It's not getting into any other categories. So a sole nomination for The Piano Lesson and Danielle Deadwyler, I think is very, I think it's going to be quite an issue for her chances. So I do have her at number 8. At number 9, I have Selena Gomez for Emilia Perez. Do I think Selena Gomez should be getting an Oscar nomination for her performance in Emilia Perez? No. Absolutely not. And the fact that she got into BAFTA puzzled me. I said, really? I mean, I knew that the international audience loved Emilia Perez. Over the Pond, they loved it. I knew that it was going to get that director nomination and the Best Picture nomination. But for Selena Gomez to get into Best Supporting Actress with that, performance, I don't know. It was just like, okay, maybe original song, but as an actress, I think that she does a fine job. Okay, do I believe that she should be nominated for the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress in this field? Come on. No, I don't think that she's getting in. If she does get in, I'll be not appalled, and I don't want to hate on Selena Gomez. I think that she's a fine actress, And I think that she does a good job in this film. I think that she's believable. For me, I saw her as like an American that was living in Mexico, married to this cartel drug lord, Manitas, and her appearance she is memorable in the film. There's some good moments, but I just don't see it for Selena Gomez this year. Maybe in another year, but without that SAG nomination, I don't think she's getting in. Now, the last person I really want to talk about is Ingenue Ellis Taylor for Nickel Boys. Wow, I'm honestly surprised that no one is really nominating her, especially after being nominated for King Richard. So her not being here is kind of surprising to me, but I'm not completely shocked. So she is at my number 10. I do have some other folks I want to talk about. We have Toni Collette in juror number 2. I believe that Vanity Fair had this whole article saying that juror number 2, people are talking about it, it's quietly sneaking in. I don't think that Toni Collette will be here. I haven't heard anyone talking about her really, except for like maybe a week. And so she is kind of in my bottom tier, but I don't want to count anyone out. You never know what's going to happen. Next, I have Elle Fanning for A Complete Unknown. So the National Board of Review awarded its Best Supporting Actress. That was kind of shocking. I do have her at the bottom tier, unfortunately. I think that she does a great job in this film from what I've seen, but I think that Monica Barbaro is the standout for this film and that she will be getting the nomination instead of Elle Fanning. I also have a huge audience favorite in Chon Chen for Dee Dee, and unfortunately, I just feel like this film, it came and went. There was a lot of love for it and her performance. I thought it would actually be talked about more, but she's just kind of falling off. We also have Michelle Austin for Hard Truths. When she wasn't nominated for the BAFTA, I kind of writ her off, as well as Natasha Lyonne for His Three Daughters. I remember like over the summer, people were saying Natasha Lyonne might be getting her Oscar nomination this year. It never happened. No one talked about that film. Now, the National Society of Film Critics did give her like a runner-up prize for Best Supporting Actress, but that's all the love that she got this year. Of course, people love Natasha Lyonne, but I don't think this year is her year. So that wraps up my 5 nominations for Best Supporting Actress as predictions. We have in alphabetical order, Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown, Jamie Lee Curtis for The Last Showgirl, Ariana Grande for Wicked, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, and Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. My next category I will be talking about is Best Sound. Now, the best sound can be a little bit difficult to predict, but sometimes I overthink it. But I do believe that we have 2 locks here in Dune Part 2 and Wicked. They both make sense. One is a musical, big budget, as well as Dune Part 2 being the big action film of the year. They're both the biggest cinematic box office achievements of the year. So I do believe they're both going to be here. Third on my list, I have A Complete Unknown. I think that the biopic, music film that it is, I do believe it will be getting into Best Sound, and it kind of like appeals to that area of voters who think, oh yeah, we don't want to only nominate action films. We do see films like Elvis and other biopics about musicians getting in for Best Sound. So I do have A Complete Unknown at number 3 on my list. Number 4 on my list, I have Emilia Perez. This is when I start getting a little bit iffy. I think those, the 2 that I'm kind of iffy about are number 4 and number 5. I'm not really quite sure. But with Emilia Perez just being like the big film that it is, I do think it gets into Best Sound. It's a musical. There's a lot of different layers to the film as well in terms of the sound mixing and the sound editing. So I do believe it's going to get into Best Sound here. Now my last spot I'm going to give to The Wild Robot. Sometimes animated films do make it into Best Sound. I think that this year with The Wild Robot losing a little momentum with Best Animated Feature, I think some folks will put it into Best Sound. People love this film. People are saying, oh, this is going to get into Best Picture this year. It's going to be like a Up. It's going to be like Toy Story 3. It's going to get into Best Picture. I don't think it is this year. So I do have it in Best Sound. I think it will be recognized here. It will be recognized in Best Animated Film and also for original score, but we'll get to that later. I have some other honorable mentions on this list. I mean, these are the other films that were included for Best Sound. Notoriously, The Substance isn't here, which I think is going to affect that it's not going to have as many technical nominations as we might think, or possibly none, which is going to be like disappointing for me, but I'm not going to be surprised. We have Gladiator 2 and Blitz. I think those are the next kind of two ones I can see sneaking in here. Blitz being a war film, Gladiator 2 being like this huge action film. However, Gladiator 2 did not perform that well in terms of like a critical response. And I think it didn't perform as well box office wise as they were expecting. So for that reason, I'm leaving it off my list. I think Dune Part 2 is like the action film that they're nominating this year. And also Amelia Perez has a lot of action in it too. So those are the two, as well as Wicked. So those are kind of like the three that I see like action-y, and those are the three that I see as being like the action-packed films, whereas Gladiator 2, I think is just gonna miss it, as well as Blitz. Now there were three other films that were on that short list by Oscars. We had Joker, Folie à Deux. If that gets nominated for Best Sound, I will be shocked. I don't think anyone is thinking like Joker is gonna get an Oscar nomination after like the past couple months when it came out, and everyone hated it. I think everyone hated it, so I don't see how it can be Best Sound, especially over the substance. That really confused me. We also have Alien Romulus and Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, Alien Romulus did get quite good reviews, and the response by the audience was really well received. But I just think that horror, I'm not sure if it's going to get a Best Sound as a horror film. It's not A Quiet Place, so I don't think it gets in here. Deadpool and Wolverine, I think it has a chance at visual effects, but I don't see it getting into Best Sound this year. I think the competition is too strong with the top 5 or 6 films, so it doesn't get in here. My final prediction for Best Sound is A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. All right, next category that I'm going to be talking about and making predictions for is Best Cinematography. Okay, so this is going to be a very controversial category, I believe. I think that there might be not a shock, but like a big disappointment in this category. And it really took a lot for me to not be like, hey, I need this film to be into Best Cinematography because it's been winning a lot of awards. And then it's been being recently shut out, especially by the ASC. Oh my God, I was shocked when it wasn't there, but we'll get to that. Well, it's Nickel Boys, let's just be honest. And it's not part of my top 5 this year. I think it's a shame. I think that is a film that's all about its cinematography and its point of view being kind of first person there. So I do find it kind of strange that it's not being nominated more for other awards. Not being nominated for ASC, I think, is like a huge thing. But it could surprise. It's just not part of my 5 this year. I think number 1 on my list is The Brutalist. That is a film that is technically, I think it's all about its cinematography and its score. I think it's a lock with Conclave, which is my number 2 right now, but Conclave might come up, especially some of the op-eds coming out about AI being used in The Brutalist. I think that in terms of like Oscars night with the ceremony, we're not going to see The Brutalist win maybe anything at this point. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe there'll be clarification on like how deep AI was used, and maybe it was just for a couple tweaks, or maybe just a couple tweaks there. But it does hurt its chances as a number 1. But I think in terms of voting, people were voting for The Brutalist as a number 1 cinematography, or maybe Conclave. Those are my first 2 on my list. Number 3, I have Dune Part 2. Now, Dune Part 2 won Best Cinematography back in 2021, or for 2021. And I do believe that this is going to be a year that it will be nominated for Best Cinematography, even though I believe that Dune Part 2 might get 1 or 2 less nominations this year because it is such a strong year. Well, some might think it's not as a strong year. It might be people's like top 3 or 4, but for me, it's like sitting just outside in terms of how I see things right now. So that's at my number 3 for cinematography. Who knows? It might be number 1. It did receive those Critics' Choice Award and BAFTA nominations, so we don't have to worry about it not coming on Oscars morning, but it is at my number 3 right now. Maybe it really does deserve to win another Best Cinematography award for Greg Fraser, but Right now, I think that the love is a little bit too strong for Conclave, and as of like a month ago, The Brutalist after the Golden Globes win, and those are really beautifully shot films as well. So I think that maybe he got his flowers then, and now we're moving on to other folks, but you just never know. So it is at my number 3. Number 4 on my list, I have Nosferatu. So every year, it seems like maybe out of nowhere, a black and white film sneaks into cinematography. Now, the only black and white film that I can see sneaking in is The Girl with the Needle, that might get ripped off for a foreign language film or international feature, as it's called now. However, I do have Nosferatu at number 4 because it has those like kind of darker gray components that you would expect like a black and white cinematography voter to go for. It is horror, but it's more than just horror. The new Nosferatu film from Robert Eggers is a technical triumph. No one can say, oh, I didn't like the cinematography. Oh, the costumes weren't that good. The production design was lacking. The score was awful. No one can say those things. I think they're all about to get in for Oscars nominations. And it does kind of play on that expressionist feel from the 1922 version of Nosferatu that is really considered such a masterpiece and such a huge cinematic revolutionary film for the expressionist movement, for horror films in general. So I do believe that Nosferatu gets in here at number 4. My number 5, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I did include Emilia Perez as my number 5 pick for Best Cinematography. Now, Emilia Perez did miss out on the ASC nomination. Wicked came in, Maria came in, and they knocked Emilia Perez out. And I'm not quite sure why. Maria doesn't seem to be like that well liked as a film. I just don't see Maria getting in for cinematography. And Wicked, it might sneak in. I think it's at my number 6, but I just think that Emilia Perez has that like gritty, well shot, well lit feel that a lot of cinematographers and other folks are going to really love. So I do include it in my cinematography 5 for this year, beating out Wicked. I might be crazy, maybe I'm crazy, but I don't think that Wicked is going to get that cinematography nomination this year. So it really pains me to say this, but Nickel Boys, actually, I think Nickel Boys is my number 6. It might be number 7. It might sneak in. Who knows? Nickel Boys, this is what it's known for, is the cinematography. It's the best shot film of the year. And unfortunately, I just feel like it's losing steam all around, and that we'll see some other nominations happening for it, or maybe just one. We'll see. But I don't think Nickel Boys is going to get in this year. I think that most people are not watching it. And if they are watching it, they're not voting for cinematography. They're voting for other categories, and it's going to miss out a lot of places. And I think there's going to be a lot of chatter about why wasn't Nickel Boys in cinematography, and a lot of like chaos and confusion, and also just anger towards that. So I don't think it gets into cinematography. But if it does, I won't be surprised, and it will be well deserved. So let's just hope that I'm wrong here. As I mentioned before, I think that The Girl with the Needle has a chance, being the only black and white film that can really see getting into cinematography this year. It has a beautiful cinematography. It's well shot. So why not include it in my list, even though I haven't seen it anywhere else? Also, a complete unknown. I think that we can't leave out A Complete Unknown with its cinematography. It's the top 5 film of the year according to BAFTA, and it has a good look to it, so I'm including it here. The last 2 films I want to talk about are Gladiator 2 and Challengers. Now, Challengers I thought had a great editing and amazing cinematography. I haven't seen it being included in any cinematographer's list this year, so I'm not including it here in my top 5. And I don't have Gladiator 2 either, even though technically I think that's an outstanding film. It just isn't in my top 5 this year. Pains me to say Nickel Boys isn't getting in. Kind of worried that Wicked is going to get in. I don't want to hate on that film, but I just don't see it for Wicked this year. Maybe next year for Wicked for Good, the sequel, but this year I think that it's going to be just narrowly left out. I was predicting The Simpsons to get in, but it's just not at my top 5 right now. I think that it's going to narrowly miss out on a lot of technicals. We don't even see it shortlisted for Best Song, which I think is one of the best things about that film besides its cinematography. So I don't have it here in my top 5. So my final prediction for Best Cinematography this year for the 2025 Academy Awards are The Brutalist, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, and Nosferatu. But let's talk about Best Visual Effects. Oh boy, when those BAFTA nominations came out and I saw Better Man there, I said, are we really gonna be having Better Man as Best Visual Effects of the year? From the trailer, I wasn't really that impressed by what I was seeing. It did get amazing critical response. The audience score is quite high, but no one really saw that film. I guess the people who did see it really loved it, but it did flop at the box office, it seems, at least here in the USA. So, uh, I was kind of contemplating not including it on my list, but now that I see that it's pretty much getting it everywhere, including the visual effects precursors and the critics groups for visual effects, the guilds, I'm including it. You know, I have Better Man on my list, so meh. I guess I'll have to watch the film and get a better opinion. I just didn't think that we would have Better Man and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes in the same 5 nominations. I think that's very strange. But those are my top, besides that and Dune Part 2, those are my top 3 for best visual effects. Now, the last 2 spots I think are going to go to Wicked and Gladiator 2. Now, I believe that Alien Romulus and Deadpool and Wolverine both deserve a little bit of love here, but I have them outside of my top 5. I have Better Man, Dune Part 2, Gladiator 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Wicked. All right, let's get into Best Animated Feature Film. Wow, I think this is going to be an interesting category. I do have my 5 that I'm really confident in. However, there are a couple films that could sneak in, either one or both of them, who knows. So the first film I want to talk about is Flow. Flow won the Golden Globe for Best Animated Film. I think many people were shocked, but I wasn't. I had it as the winner. I think that is a really awesome international feature film that is animated, and I wasn't surprised when the Golden Globes picked Flow as its best animated feature film of the year. With The Wild Robot, that is my number 2 slot right now. So I think when the Critics' Choice Awards come on February 7th, they're going to open the envelope and say The Wild Robot. It seems to be more of the universally acclaimed, film over here on this side of the pond. So I don't see it not getting in. Those are my top 2. Those are the locks for this year. If Flow doesn't get in, if The Wild Robot doesn't get in, I will be shocked. I'll give everyone that watches this video like $100. Those 2 are getting in. And I think it's gonna be a fight between the 2. I'm not sure who's gonna win. Right now, I'm looking at Flow, but you never know. The Wild Robot could win, and I could be wrong. So for number 3 spot in my list, I have Inside Out 2. So Inside Out 2 did not do as well as Inside Out in terms of the critical response, in terms of the audience response. I saw this film in theaters. I cried. I found this story so relatable to me in terms of like anxiety. So I have it in my top 3. I don't think it's not being included. I've seen on pretty much every list in terms of nominations. So I'm including it here. Number 4 on my list is Memoir of a Snail. Now, Memoir of a Snail was not nominated for BAFTA, which I wasn't surprised in. My top 3 was, Flow, The Wild Robot, Inside Out 2, and BAFTA being BAFTA, they included Wallace and Gromit. So Wallace and Gromit is my number 5. However, I think Transformers 1 might sneak in. I'm not quite sure. I think that Wallace and Gromit, with that international support, it might just get a little bit of a nudge in front of Transformers 1 and Moana 2. We have to talk about Moana 2 as well. But yes, so number 5, I have Wallace and Gromit. And number 4, I have Memoir of a Snail. Yeah, so Memoir of a Snail is stop motion. So we need to have like one stop motion film, right? In animated feature. I do believe it gets in. I don't think it gets snubbed. I don't think there's a world when Memoir of a Snail doesn't get in. I mean, some people are saying it doesn't get in, but I think it does get in. Now, of course, we have, I would say about 3 films that I think that could get in. I don't think they're getting in. We have Moana 2, which received the Golden Globe nomination. For Moana 2 to get in this year, when that animated film field is so strong, when we already have a sequel, Inside Out 2, I don't know. I don't think I see that for Moana 2 this year. I think it misses out. It's not as widely loved as Inside Out 2 might have been. So I think that Moana 2 is off my list for now. I want to put Transformers 1 a little bit higher. I know the passion for Transformers 1 is much, much stronger than Moana 2, but I don't know about Transformers 1. I just have it at my number 7 for now, and I'm not moving it. If it gets in, I wouldn't be surprised, but for now, it's outside the 5 and it's gonna stay there. I also have Kensuke's Kingdom on my list. Now, this did get nominated for Best Children's Film or Family Film for the BAFTA Award, and I wasn't surprised there either. However, I find it strange that it wasn't in the animated film kind of list. That kind of confused me, but at the end of the day, I think it makes sense. It's not like a very strongly critically acclaimed film, but it is like a good film. So I have it outside my top 5, but you can never underestimate a film such as Kensuke's Kingdom getting in. So watch out for that one too. The only other 5 films I can think of from that list that would get in are Piece by Piece, The Lord of the Rings, Despicable Me 4, which would be ridiculous, and Kung Fu Panda 4. So those are the other 4. I don't see them getting in, but who knows what's gonna happen. They might get in. I just have my top 5. So my predictions for Best Animated Film are Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and The Wild Robot. The next set of nominees that I'm going to be predicting are for Best Supporting Actor. Now, this is a category that is stacked, just like the other categories, except for maybe actor. I see about 10 people that could be vying for those 5 spots. It's a lot more than I think that we originally planned for. And one of them I think is going to be a surprise to most, and he might be nominated. So for Best Supporting Actor, I have some surprises here that I think that might come in, but I do have 3 locks for nominations morning, and they are Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain, Edward Norton in A Complete Unknown, and Yura Borisov for Anora. Now, I think we can safely say that Kieran Culkin will be getting the Oscar during the Oscar ceremony. He's been sweeping all season. I see him getting the Critics' Choice. I see him getting the BAFTA award as well. But you never know. Maybe Yura Borisov comes in and does something unusual and throws us all off. That was a fantastic performance. When I watched Anora, I didn't realize how powerful that performance was. I was hearing, oh, it's a very subtle performance. It's not something that you would typically associate with a Best Supporting Actor nomination, but I think that could not be farther from the truth. It is such a standout performance in that film. I think he outshines many people in that film as well. However, the casting and the entire ensemble did a really great job. So he is a lock for a nomination. With A Complete Unknown coming out as a really major Oscar contender, that BAFTA top 5, Edward Norton getting into SAG and BAFTA and the Golden Globes, he's a lock. He's not going anywhere. And so those are my top 3. Now, when it gets to 4 and 5, I'm starting to feel a little bit like hesitant about who to say is going to be getting in. The 2 that I believe that are going to have a pretty good chance of getting into Best Supporting Actor this year are Guy Pearce for The Brutalist and Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. Jeremy Strong did miss that Critics' Choice nomination, but he did get into BAFTA, and that really solidifies my belief that he will be getting in for The Apprentice. He got a Golden Globe nomination and a SAG Performance nomination, so he's in for me. He's at number 4. My number 5, which really went down after the lack of SAG nomination, is Guy Pearce in The Brutalist. I think that his chances to win the Oscar have definitely gone down significantly. The Brutalist is not getting Best Ensemble, Best Casting, so it's kind of a 50-50 if he gets in for me right now. I think it is a very strong possibility that he gets snubbed, even though he's going to be a first-time performance nominee. Probably. I think that it's kind of on shaky ground with The Brutalist, and even if he does get in, he's definitely not going to be winning for The Brutalist. Yeah, I don't see it for Guy Pearce for winning, but I think that he does get in. He is in that first half of the film. So for me, he's my number 5. And it really greatly pains me to say this, But I do not think Clarence Macklin, even after that BAFTA nomination, is going to get into the Best Supporting Actor this year. It's kind of a shame, I believe. I think that his performance is incredibly inspired, just like Coleman Domingo's. His involvement with that film, the way it's based on himself as a person, as a put onto screen as a character, I think is very brave. But I just don't see it for Clarence Macklin this year. Now, if he does get in, I'll be pleasantly surprised. But just looking at those five that I have at the top, I don't see how they could possibly be left out. Again, the only person I see leaving is Guy Pearce. Now let's talk about the number 7 on my list. And I know for a fact that no one has him anywhere after watching some of the videos from like a month ago, even 2 weeks ago that are on YouTube, looking at the lists of predicted nominees from other folks involved in Oscar predictions. No one's talking about Carlos Diaz in Conclave. Now, when I watch Conclave, I thought to myself, why is no one talking about Carlos Diaz? This role is so perfect for an Oscar. First of all, the end involves him, obviously, as the father Benitez. And I thought his performance was extraordinary. I mean, it was very subtle, of course, but very powerful and moving in a way that Stanley Tucci's was not. I thought Stanley Tucci might get in at BAFTA. After seeing that long list, seeing him there after no one really talking about him past August, I guess I could say. When the screenings came out for Conclave, people were looking and saying, oh no, Stanley Tucci's not getting in. And then I was like, but Stanley Tucci, how could you not nominate Stanley Tucci for an Oscar? I mean, he hasn't been nominated enough, in my opinion. He's had an illustrious career. But this role for Stanley Tucci in Conclave, I think it comes secondary to Carlos Diaz. So back in 2018, well, it was announced in 2019, right? The nominations for Best Supporting Actress comes out. The second name announced in that lineup, Marina de Tavira for Roma. Wow. Okay, no one was seeing that coming, right? No one predicted that she would be nominated for that role. Now, of course, Roma had a lot of critical acclaim at the time, and it was a front runner for Best Picture, but no one was really talking about her performance. But when she was nominated, I said, oh, that makes sense. You know, she did really well in that film. She's a great supporting actress. And I think the same can be said for Carlos Diaz in Conclave. He's at my number 7, but if he does get nominated, I won't be surprised. It will be a shock to many people. He hasn't been talked about enough, and the field is very strong this year, so I'm keeping him there at number 7. For my 8 through 10, I have Jonathan Bailey for Wicked. Since he was on for SAG and for the love that Wicked has, of course I have to include him in number 8, as well as Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2. But past the Golden Globes, Denzel's been not talked about at all. So he's not in my top 5. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if either of them sneak in with the love for Wicked, with just the love for Denzel in general. I think that it's not outside the realm of possibility, so they are just above my 10 for now. The last 3 people I want to talk about are Stanley Tucci and Conclave. Of course, I mentioned him before. Everyone loves Stanley Tucci. He doesn't get enough love or praise, and he could sneak in, but for me, the stronger performance was Carlos Diaz in that film, among others. Also, Mark Edelstein for Anora. Now, I think that beginning award season, everyone was saying Mark Edelstein is definitely a threat for Anora. I mean, he's in most of the film except that one 30-minute chunk where, you know, something happens and he's not in the film. He just got overshadowed by Yuri Borisov this season, and I don't see them both getting in. My last person on my list I would like to talk about is Adam Pearson for A Different Man. Now, I watched A Different Man a few days ago, and I was very impressed by the performance by Adam Pearson. This isn't his first film. He was also in Under the Skin. And I just felt like he gave a very inspired performance, and it was a very confident performance. And, you know, unfortunately, I think A Different Man is not going to be getting a lot of Oscars love. There's something about that film that just doesn't feel like an Oscars film. So I'm not going to be having him on my list. I think it would be really cool if he got nominated, but I just don't think this is going to be a role that he gets the Oscar for. So these are my predictions for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. We have Yura Borisov in Anora, Kieran Culkin, Edward Norton for A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. The next nominations I would like to talk about for my predictions are for Best International Feature Film. So every year I feel like the Academy really surprises us with a snub for Best International Feature Film, or just like a surprise entry. I'm so traumatized by when a couple of years ago, Decision to Leave did not get an Oscar nomination for Best Foreign Language Film or Best International Feature Film, as it's now called. That was shocking to me. That was like a top 5 film of the year for me. So when it was not included, I've always been doubtful if I'm ever gonna get a Best International Feature Film 5 correct again, but I'm just gonna go for it. Obviously, Amelia Perez is a lock for the nomination, and I do believe that The Seed of the Sacred Fig is also a lock, just with the background of that story, with the director having to flee Iran to Germany, and Germany having like a really strong presence in the international feature film lineup pretty much every year. I do believe that it's going to be getting in at number 2. My number 3 is I'm Still Here. Now, I could technically say this is my number 2 because it's gotten so much momentum, and I think that it might surprise in like another category besides Best Actress. For now, I do have it at my number 3 for I'm Still Here. My number 4 and number 5 are like anyone could guess. I mean, who knows what's gonna happen. Number 4, I have Kneecap from Ireland. Now, Kneecap, it was longlisted at BAFTA, and I think that really helps it at the end of the day. And I remember The Quiet Girl being nominated a couple of years ago. I just think that Ireland having a film in this kind of lineup that is so widely loved with such a strong appeal to this film. I do have it at number 4, but I'm not certain, to be honest. I do see it showing up on Oscars morning. My number 5, I have no idea what's gonna happen. Right now, it's between The Girl with the Needle and Flow. Right now, I have The Girl with the Needle just because of its cinematography. And I think The Girl with the Needle has a little bit of a chance to get in. And it was really well received by critics and also at Cannes. So I don't know about Flow. I mean, Flow right now I have at my number 6. I'm not quite sure if it's going to get in. I know for a fact it's getting in for Best Animated Feature Film, but I'm not sure if this is going to be a repeat of Waltz with Bashir. And I think it's certainly a possibility, and I won't be surprised if I see it Oscars morning and The Girl with the Needle's not there or Kneecap is not there, but I certainly believe that it's going to get in. So, The Girl with the Needle, it's going to get in. Flow's at number 6 for me, but it wouldn't be a surprise if I saw it there. The next 3 films that I think that have a very strong chance of getting that number 5, if it's not Flow, if it's not The Girl with the Needle, are Santosh, Armand, and Vermilio. These seem like the most widely loved films of the lot that were included in that shortlist by the Academy when those shortlists came out. The rest of the films I'm not really seeing as an international feature film nomination. Now, Dahomey, I believe, has a chance to get into the 5 at Best Documentary Feature Film, but for right now, I think that's just gonna stay there, and it's actually, I feel like it has like a strong chance it might get snubbed there, so I have it outside of my 5. I think it might be interesting if we see How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies. Maybe that's the one that just comes in, like a Lunana, the Yak story, or whatever that was called. A Thai film gets into the 5. It could happen. I don't see it like as a super big surprise, but I just don't think that film is going to make it to the top 5. I think the competition is extremely tough this year. I mean, I have like 9 films I think are vying for 5 spots, so I think it's lying just outside those 9. My predictions for Best Costume Design are probably a little bit, I don't think I'm going to get this category right for some reason. I thought around the BAFTAs, when the BAFTAs came out, I was like pretty sure, oh yeah, this is gonna happen. But then I looked a little bit more into kind of the history of what happens with costume design, as well as the Costume Design Guild this year. And I just feel like my 5, I don't know if they're gonna be all right. I do believe that Dune Part 2 and Wicked are getting in their locks. I believe that Nosferatu is getting in at number 3. And then the number 4 and 5, I'm not quite sure. I put Conclave. I just feel like the love for that movie and I think the costume design is actually very intricate and well done. So I'm putting that into my 5, as well as A Complete Unknown. Being like a period piece, a biopic, it just gives me a lot of like vibes that, yeah, it's gonna get in. You never know. From these, I don't see any contemporary films getting in. So it could be something else going on here. Maybe The Substance gets in and it pulls like what I think was like the Everything Everywhere All at Once nomination with that yellow jacket that Demi Moore wears and that one-piece bodysuit, the pink one that Margaret Qualley wears. I think those are like really huge statement pieces for the film. So it could get in, but I don't really have it near my top 5 at the moment. I think 2 other films that could get in are Maria, which I think that no one's really watching, so I'm not sure if it will. I think it has a better chance at makeup and hairstyling. And then also Gladiator 2. I did mention in my previous video that I think Gladiator 2 might get into costume design over Blitz. But now that I think about it, I don't think it will. I think that it'll be Dune Part 2. So my predicted 5 for costume design are A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Conclave, Nosferatu, and Wicked. The next category on my list is Best Original Screenplay. Oh my goodness. What are we gonna do here, guys? Look at the WGA nominations for Best Original Screenplay. I was shocked when I saw them. I said Civil War and My Old Ass. What? And then I thought about it and I thought, maybe My Old Ass does have a chance. I don't have it inside my top 5 right now, but it could be a surprise nomination or what one would perceive to be a surprise nomination. Right now, the locks that I have for Best Original Screenplay are Sean Baker for Anora and Jesse Eisenberg for A Real Pain, with Coralie Farge at number 3 for The Substance. Those are my top 3. I don't think they're gonna be snubbed at all. The only film that I'm kind of feeling like, is this film going to be snubbed, is The Brutalist. Now, it wasn't eligible for the WGA's awards, but I'm not quite sure why, and neither was Emilia Perez. So The Brutalist is at my number 5, with Challengers at number 4. Challengers was nominated by the WGA for one of the best original screenplays of the year. This is where I think that Challengers might get in, especially with that and editing. Obviously, score, I think, is a threat with the Golden Globe win. But I do see it getting here in original screenplay instead of a Best Picture nomination. Although I've been a big proponent of Challengers as this, like, my top 10 film of the year, I don't think it's going to get into Best Picture, so it's going to be here at Best Original Screenplay. So there's some other films I think that definitely could get into the top 5, but are just outside for me. Those being September 5, My Old Ass, All We Imagine Is Light, Hard Truths, Kneecap, Civil War, A Different Man, and Heretic. I mean, Heretic might be a stretch, but I do believe that September 5 and My Old Ass and All We Imagine Is Light have a chance. Especially since All We Imagine Is Light is not being considered for a Best Director nomination anymore, really. And people really seem to have a very strong response to All We Imagine Is Light. It did get like that 2nd place prize at Cannes. It did, get that Best Director nomination at the Golden Globes. But being left off for BAFTA, I think was like kind of shocking for me. I mean, it wasn't so shocking that I was surprised so much, but I was like, oh, All We Imagine Is Light is not here. And we have to take it off the list for Best Director. We probably have to take it off the list for Best Original Screenplay. So it is at my number 8 right now, behind September 5 and My Old Ass. Best Adapted Screenplay. Okay, the screenplay nominations this year are gonna be a doozy, I think. It's gonna be confusing. I was confused predicting. I was looking at WGA. I was looking at kind of what was happening with critics, with the different precursors. And of course, we all know that the BAFTAs did nominate both Nickel Boys and Sing Sing for their Best Adapted Screenplay, which I thought was really exciting. I liked seeing that. I just think that for the Oscars, they're not both gonna get in, just like Best Picture, even though I really, really want them to get in, but maybe I'm overthinking it. I think that for my number 1 though, that's an absolute lock, I don't see it not getting in, is Conclave. Now, it was ineligible for the WGA awards. However, it's getting in. Like, it won the Golden Globe for Best Screenplay, so it's definitely going to be getting in, if not winning. At number 2, I have A Complete Unknown because of all the hype it's been getting and just the way that folks have been reacting to this film. I do have it at my number 2 for Best Adapted Screenplay. My number 3 for Best Adapted Screenplay is Jacques Audiard for Amelia Perez. Now, I feel like it should be lower on my list just because of the bad reaction that Amelia Perez had after the Golden Globes, with all the backlash, with the way that some people were picking apart the Spanish for being on Google Translate or ChatGPT or whatnot. I do think that it's getting in. It's just got that international appeal, and it's at my number 3 spot for now. At number 4, I have Sing Sing. Now, my number 4 and my number 5, I'm really like, I have no idea what's going to happen. Is it going to go to Sing Sing, Dune Part 2, Nickel Boys, Wicked, even I'm Still Here? It could be a possibility. For now, I have Sing Sing at number 4. I think that this is a screenplay film. I think that the way that it got in at BAFTA really solidified my confidence for this getting in at Best Adapted Screenplay. And if it doesn't get Best Picture, at least it's here. At number 5, I have Dune Part 2. Now, this didn't get in at BAFTA, which concerned me. I thought for sure Dune Part 2 would get at BAFTA if it got a Best Screenplay nomination for the Oscars and for BAFTA when the first one came out. I do think it's going to get in here. I think Denis Villeneuve is not getting at Best Director, which is going to be sad again, but I don't think he's getting in. The competition is very fierce this year, so I see him getting here at Best Adapted Screenplay. At my number 7, I do have Wicked. Now, also, I wouldn't be surprised if Wicked was here, but even though it was nominated for the Writers Guild Association Best Adapted Screenplay and the Critics' Choice Awards, I feel like it's not getting in this year. I feel like next year, Wicked for Good, if that film is as well received as this Wicked, I think it'll get in there. And just because I think they're going to do more with the story there, and the story gets very interesting in the second half, even though I think I don't see it getting into Best Adapted Screenplay. Maybe I'm underestimating the love for Wicked, but I just feel like Adapted Screenplay is really crazy this year. Or maybe Wicked gets in and Sing Sing and Nickel Boys are snubbed. I just feel like Wicked doesn't really belong here, but that's just me. I think that film is more of a technical tour de force, an acting tour de force, so I'm not including it this year. Now, that being said, I'm Still Here does have a chance to get in adapted screenplay. I just feel like an adapted screenplay, the voters tend to be a little bit more conventional and stick to the American films. I think if it was an original screenplay, it would be pushed a little bit more, but I never saw it in any of the screenplay nominations, for any of the precursors, for any of the critics. You never know. We did see that support for The Worst Person in the World a couple years ago. That got into Best Original Screenplay, but again, this is a different category. I don't have I'm Still Here, but with the wave of momentum building for that film, I mean, like, who knows? It could be in a Best Adapted Screenplay. It probably is going to be in Best Actress. In Best Film, I don't know. Like, I don't have it even on my list at all for Best Film as like a possible 15 or 16 films, but you never know. It could be surprising. So my predicted 5 for Best Adapted Screenplay are A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, and Sing Sing. Best Original Score. Now, I'm getting really nervous about this category because Challengers wasn't long listed for Best Original Score, and it wasn't part of the 5, obviously, but I feel like the Academy really loves Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, so it is going to be getting in. It is at my number 1 for now because I think it will win as well. So definitely think that Challengers is a threat. At number 2, I have Conclave. I've heard so many great things about the score. I mean, I watched the film. Of course, the score is masterful. It really contributes to the suspense of the film, of just how unique the film really is. So I do have it at number 2. At number 3, I have The Wild Robot. You know, the Academy loves to recognize animated films and their scores, rightfully so. This score is just a lot of fun. It's really well crafted, and I think it gets in. It's number 3 for me. At number 4, I have Amelia Perez. This is a musical that is original. It is going to certainly be in Best Original Song. And I think that there must be some overlap besides The Wild Robot, besides Challengers. Amelia Perez will be there, and those will be our three like main crossovers between song and score. So I have it at number 4 for now. My fifth spot, I've been debating if it's gonna be Nosferatu or The Brutalist. For now, I put The Brutalist in Best Original Score, but I certainly believe that it might be snubbed here. The score is kind of reminiscent of the work of Hildur Guðnadóttir. And I remember a couple years ago, Tar got snubbed after that win at the Critics' Choice Awards. And I was like, what is going on? And there's like, I don't know why, there's like some parallels in my mind between the Tar score and the Brutalist score. It is like a weird score, like there's a lot of experimental stuff going on. So I think it might be snubbed. Maybe Wicked gets in, maybe Nosferatu gets in, but I do have it at number 5 for now. It's not going to win the Oscar for Best Score, I don't believe at this point. At my number 6 and number 7, I have Nosferatu, which was nominated at BAFTA, as well as Wicked. So I think either of these could get in, or both, who knows. Best Original Score, I always miss one or two, so I think Blitz also has a chance. I mean, the Academy loves Hans Zimmer, so if it does get in, I wouldn't be surprised, but it did not get in at BAFTA, and I think that's a really bad look for Blitz, especially being like a British film, and having other technical categories it was nominated for Best Original Score, for it not to get in. I think that's the nail in the coffin there. Also, we have Gladiator 2, The 688, other films like Alien Romulus, Baby Girl, Beetlejuice, and Blink Twice. I don't see them getting in, so they're not in my top 7 or 8. So my final prediction for Best Original Score are The Brutalist, Challengers, Conclave, Amelia Perez, and The Wild Robot. For Best Documentary Feature Film, I have as my number 1, definitely not nominated film, as being No Other Land. This is a film that is of the times. It's talking about current issues. I'm reminded of the film 20 Days in Mariupol. It's just a very similar context of the political climate, of the wars happening now. And although it is sensitive material, I do believe it gets in. I haven't seen it not on a list anywhere. So that is my number 1 lock for the year. At number 2, I have Daughters. Now, I didn't predict this for the BAFTA nominations, but now that I saw the BAFTAs and a lot of the other lists with documentary, I do have it at my number 2. I do think that it is a threat for winning as a surprise. And yeah, so that's my number 2. Number 3, I have Will and Harper, also nominated at BAFTA. I wasn't really sure if that was going to get in. It did get in. I think it's a lock now. So my top 3 locks I have in place. And now I'm trying to think if both of the documentaries that should get in will get in. I have Dahomey at number 4 and Sugarcane at number 5. Sugarcane just feels like that documentary that gets snubbed. And Dahomey, I don't know. There's something about it that, yeah, I think it's going to be nominated. I don't know. I feel like Dahomey and Sugarcane are like, I feel like they're like the same voter, like both of those films. So I'm not quite sure if they both get in, but for now, I do have them in my top 5. The next few films I think are a threat for number 4 and 5 are Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat, Black Box Diaries, and The Remarkable Life of Evelyn. Black Box Diaries was nominated for BAFTA, but I'm kind of wondering if it will get in. I think it might get in, honestly, but I do have Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat just above it. I still think The Remarkable Life of Evelyn is a very interesting story told. It does have a chance to get in, but I just don't have it in after the BAFTA snub. The rest of the documentaries, I don't really know much about. I'll be very surprised if the BB Files gets in, as well as No Other Land. That would be like, I feel like that's a lot for documentary category for both of those films to get in. With the sensitive content matter, yeah, I don't think so. I think No Other Land is going to be the appeal to the voters. So my predictions for Best Documentary Feature Film are Dahomey, Daughters, No Other Land, Sugarcane, and Will and Harper. For Best Production Design, I'm pretty confident in my predictions this year. If I don't get it, I'll be kind of having a tear coming down my face. The 5 that I have, I think, are like really strong. Number 1, I have going into the nominations. If I think about the way that they voted, I would say The Brutalist, because it is a production design architecture film. I do have it at number one, but I think it's at threat of winning the Oscar because of the use of AI again. And it's so centered around the acting and the actual design of the art direction, the production design, the way that they did a little tweaks with AI. I think it's a little bit different than CGI when you're introducing AI and it's so like and it's so controversial with all of the strikes happening over AI. I don't think it's going to be at number one going into awards night, but it is my number one for nominations. My number two is Conclave. The way they replicated much of this inside of the Vatican, of the sequestering, I think that it's going to appeal to voters in general. And, Conclave is running away with all these nominations between the BAFTAs, between the Critics' Choice, and now Oscars coming up. I do think it makes it into production design, and it is at my number two. At number three, I have Wicked. Now, maybe this should be at my number two. It's just that I feel like Conclave, everyone loves that film a lot more than Wicked for some reason. I feel like it's just edging above Wicked at this point. There was a point in time where I was like, oh, Wicked's going to win production design, probably. I mean, The Brutalist, yeah. It's either going to be The Brutalist or Wicked. Yeah, maybe it should be at my number one. It is a technical tour de force, but a lot of the production design in that is more so CGI. It's more so green screens. And that maybe people reserve that for best special effects. Yeah, that's my number three, Wicked. Number four and five, I can't really tell if they're number four or number five. I have Dune Part 2 and Nosferatu. Both of these films are technical tour de forces. I see them getting at production design. And I think number six spot, Gladiator 2, I think it just misses. Now, I think that someone could make the case that A Complete Unknown gets in. I don't think so. I don't think that film's going to be nominated for Best Production Design. And yeah, I mean, Beetlejuice also has great production design, but I think it's a very strong year. So I don't think it gets in. I think a case could be made for Emilia Perez or The Substance. I just don't see it. I don't think this is the category they're going to be doing well in, if anything. So I think Emilia Perez is more of a cinematography movie. I think The Substance would have probably the best chance in costume design, to be honest. Between the costume design and the editing, I just don't see it in production design. That's my five. I have The Brutalist, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked. All right, let's talk about Best Original Song. I just feel like I have no confidence in my predictions here. I just went with the five that I feel like are going to be getting in. They just have like this certain aura about them. I'm like, okay, that's an Oscar nominated song. But every year I'm proved wrong. Diane Warren gets in, or some other song that I have no clue what it is, or some film that's like random. I'm like, what is that film? I have no idea what it is, but the song got in, and usually those go hand in hand with Diane Warren. But the five that I have this year are Compress, Repress, might get snubbed. I'm not sure. It's a very modern song, but imagine Oscars night. We have Trent Reznor singing Compress, Repress. Oh my God, that would be so cool to see. And I really want to see that. I hope the voters do too. At number two, I have El Mal from Emilia Perez. Now, El Mal won the Golden Globe for Best Original Song. It's not really my number two. I think it probably is my number one, but there's something telling me it might split the vote with Mi Camino. I'm not sure. Mi Camino's at my number four. I think it'd be really cool to see Selena Gomez perform Mi Camino Oscars night. Hopefully they're doing all the original songs and performing them like they usually do. Yeah, Mi Camino's in there. I have Sick in the Head from Kneecap. What a fun song. It would really depress me if I did not see this song come into Oscars night, come into the Oscars nominations morning. It has to be there, right? Like, it's so cool. I mean, it has to be nominated. Please, please, please nominate Sick in the Head with Kneecap. Kneecap really deserves something. If it doesn't get into Best International Feature Film, certainly I believe it belongs here in Best Original Song. Also, I have Kiss the Sky from The Wild Robot. Now, what a night it would be if we have all these five songs coming in. They're all performed. They're all really cool songs. We have Miley Cyrus coming out singing. She has to be there. So that is also in my top five. Honestly, this is kind of a crapshoot. I feel like a lot of these songs, I was listening to them and I was like, Also, I was listening to past nominated songs in this category, and I was really confused how some of them got nominated over others. I have Compress Repress from Challengers, El Mal from Amelia Perez, Mi Camino from Amelia Perez, Sick in the Head from Kneecap, and Kiss the Sky from The Wild Robot. All right, we're getting to the end of my video, and we have Best Director. Oh boy, this is a category. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm hoping Coralie Farja gets in for The Substance. I think she's at threat. I'm not sure. I think she does get in. I think Audiard also has a chance of being snubbed, but I have them both in for now in my top five. At number one, definitely a lock. Again, going into nominations morning, I have Brady Corbett for The Brutalist. He has been sweeping across the board. He is being nominated. There's no way in hell he's being snubbed. However, I think that, again, he might be snubbed for a win for The Brutalist just because of all the sensitivity around the film at the moment. Who knows? Maybe Sean Baker wins for Anora or Edward Berger for Conclave. I think those two are definitely a lock as well. I do have my 1, 2, and 3 as being Corbett, Berger, and Baker for Anora. So that brings us to number 4 and 5. At number 4, I have Jacques Audiard for Amelia Perez. Now, whatever you think about the film, it's definitely like original film. It has a lot of really cool stuff going on, technically, storytelling wise. I think that he does get in at Best Director. He has too much international acclaim, and he hasn't been nominated for an Oscar yet. He directed A Prophet. He directed Deepan, which won the Palme d'Or years ago, and he just has to get in here, right? I don't know. He might be a snubbed, but I don't think so. At number 5, I do have Coralie Farja for The Substance. Now, this is another one where I feel like voters, especially women, will look at this film and say, we need a female director here. So the past 10 years, we've been seeing more and more female directors being included into our Oscar nominations. For the past 5 years, except for Greta Gerwig being not nominated for Barbie and Little Women, which is a little cringe. That year with Barbie, Justine Triet was nominated. So I do believe that we're going to have Coralie Farja come in and be our number 5 pick for Best Director. So now that makes me wonder, what about Denis Villeneuve? He wasn't nominated for Best Director for Dune, but he deserves one for Dune Part 2. I mean, this is the superior film. Why not include it in Best Director for 2024? Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't even answer that own question. I just feel like the competition is so strong this year. You know, we have Dune, Messiah coming out. Also, we have John M. Chu for Wicked. You know, they could be waiting for Wicked for Good to give him a Best Director nomination. When John M. Chu won for National Border Review for Best Director, that was like, whoa. The last time that a National Border Review director was not nominated was in 2020. Spike Lee was not nominated for The Five Bloods, which I think is a much more divisive film compared to Wicked. Wicked is widely loved. I mean, everyone has seen it. The Five Bloods, yeah, I don't think a lot of people loved that film. So I wasn't surprised when Spike Lee wasn't nominated for The Five Bloods. And then we also have Ridley Scott for The Martian. Now, that was a surprise, I think. When he wasn't nominated for Oscar for The Martian, I was like, whoa. The fact that Lenny Abramson came in and got nominated for Room, I mean, yeah, that was a choice. I don't think The Room is as widely talked about as it is The Martian nowadays. For John M. Chu to miss Best Director, that's gonna be hard to reconcile if National Border Review went with a director. And I feel like 8 times out of 10, the way that they've been awarding Best Director over the past decade, for only like 1 or 2 people not to get in. And these were for directors that had already been nominated for Oscars. So maybe like that year that Ridley Scott wasn't included, Lenny Abramson came in because we wanted to give a nomination to someone who hadn't been recognized before. And The Five Bloods was never really in contention for award season, I don't believe, except for Delroy Lindo's performance. Did see it in some Best Picture lineups, but the 7 that I have here are kind of like, oh, it's a toss-up, right? I think that Coralie Farjah gets in. I think Audiard gets in. They both are in contention for Best Director. The international appeal is too strong for these people. For John M. Chu to get in for Wicked, it's kind of a long shot for me. I don't know if he will, but Denis Villeneuve, it does make me sad to say, but he is out of my top five. He is at number 6. So my top 5 predicted nominees for Best Director are Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, Sean Baker for Honora, Edward Berger for Conclave, Brady Corbett for The Brutalist, and Coralie Farjah for The Substance. Best Makeup and Hairstyling. I'm going with my BAFTA predictions here that actually got nominated. I do believe that there might be one that I don't get right because it always, the technicals, I'm always like missing one or two. I think Maria could get in, Beetlejuice could get in, A Different Man even. But for now, my predicted 5 are the same as BAFTA. I have Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Nosferatu, The Substance, and Wicked. Okay, let's get into Best Actor. Now, I had my 5 set for like a month and a half. I had Daniel Craig in my 5 for Queer. I thought for sure he was gonna get in. If you look at the National Board of Review and look at all the Best Actor winners, I don't think in the past decade there's a single winner of Best Actor at the National Board of Review. And I know we can't really rely on the National Board of Review for pretty much anything except maybe like the ones that might get in. So I didn't think that he would be winning at the end of the day, even though beginning of the year I thought of it as a Daniel Craig versus a Coleman Domingo race. But now I'm looking at it and I think that Sebastian Stan gets in for The Apprentice with that BAFTA nomination, with kind of a shout out at the Golden Globes after winning that Golden Globe for A Different Man. When I added the stats up, I did have Daniel Craig as my number 5, but then I looked and I combined the stats from A Different Man and The Apprentice. I did come slightly above Daniel Craig's performance in Queer. So my predicted 5, well, first of all, I think Adrien Brody is a lock for The Brutalist. Coleman Domingo is a lock for Sing Sing. He is not getting snubbed. This is not going to be Daniel Deadweiler until where there's this huge thing about, oh my God, how could they snub for this story? How could they snub someone like this? He's getting in. He got in for Rustin, so he's getting in for Sing Sing. I have Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, and also Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, who is getting a lot of momentum for his portrayal of Bob Dylan. So let's see what happens with that. I have Adrien Brody as my number 1, and the rest, those 3 are definitely locks. My number 5, I have Sebastian Stan in The Apprentice, with Daniel Craig just narrowly missing out for Queer. It's a shame. He's had so many good performances ignored by Oscar, a great career. I can think of Layer Cake, the James Bond series, Knives Out, Glass Onion, never nominated. And I don't think it's getting nominated here. I think the film is very divisive, and it's for, I don't know. I just feel like I'm not getting a good feeling about Daniel Craig being nominated now. After seeing BAFTA, and then Hugh Grant coming in with Heretic, I mean, who knows? Maybe Hugh Grant gets nominated. So my final prediction for Best Actor is Adrien Brody, The Brutalist, Timothée Chalamet in A Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, and Sebastian Stan for his portrayal of Donald Trump in The Apprentice. Okay, we're going on to Best Actress now. Now, I think I have a pretty calm 5. I think it has kind of settled down a bit. Some people are saying that Cynthia Erivo is going to be snubbed this year. She better not be snubbed. I mean, did we all see that performance of Defying Gravity? And you see like kind of like the process that what she went through, having to do all those flips and spins and wires while singing. And they were on that huge press tour between Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. I mean, how do we nominate Ariana Grande and not Cynthia Erivo? Plus, Cynthia Erivo is a past nominee for Harriet. I think it's an easier lock for her, but I can't call it a lock now. I don't know why. People are saying, Cynthia Erivo, she might get snubbed. I have her as my number 4 right now. In my number 1, I do have Demi Moore for The Substance. It's super exciting to see her at number 1 when a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago, she was floating around my 5 or 6. I was predicting that she was gonna get in, but now she's at my number 1 after that Golden Globe win, after perhaps a BAFTA win. We'll have to see. At number 2, I do have Mikey Madison for Honora. I do believe that Mikey Madison has a big chance to win the Critics' Choice Award. And I just feel like this is a really good performance. Like, I don't know, I think maybe it's better than Demi Moore's. I can't say it is better or worse, but when I watch Nora, Mikey Madison does a fantastic job. I mean, she's not even like, this is not even her first role, right? She's in Scream, she's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She isn't like a new person in film. So I don't think that the fact that, oh, she's new, she doesn't get the Oscar, but Demi Moore's ahead of her for now. At my number 3, I have Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez. She's not nominated here. She's a lock. Number 3, first trans actress to be nominated for an Academy Award that is out as trans. I think the story arc is too good. She's been doing the rounds. She was on Jimmy Fallon. She won part of the Cannes Best Actress performance. So she's been very vocal about the film. That Golden Globe win for Emilia Perez for Best Musical or Comedy, when she accepted that award on behalf of the entire cast and crew, and when Jacques Audiard gave her the mic, I think that was too powerful a moment for her to ever be snubbed. I'm seeing a lot of folks on Reddit, on Twitter saying she gets snubbed. She doesn't deserve to be here. What a terrible film. I have no words. I can't really get into it. I don't want to be dramatic about it. If you think Carla Sofia Gascon gets snubbed for Emilia Perez, I think there's something wrong with your tap water. If you're drinking the tap water. I have Cynthia Erivo as my number 4 for Wicked. For my number 5, I have Fernanda Torres for I'm Not There. I think the momentum's too strong. I think that, Carla Sofia Gascon gets the votes from both here and abroad, and Fernanda Torres is getting those votes. She went over Angelina Jolie's head. She went over Pamela Anderson's head, and Nicole Kidman. Marianne Jean-Baptiste, I thought she would probably make the 5, but after that Golden Globe win, I'm not quite sure. She was nominated for BAFTA, so she does have a chance, but she is at my number 6. At my number 7, I have Pamela Anderson for The Last Showgirl. I don't know. I just don't see her getting in here, even with that SAG nom. I think with the SAG nom, that's her flowers for the season. It was a little bit easier to get at Golden Globes, but for getting that SAG nomination, good for her. She's in there. I don't see her at the Oscars, unfortunately, even though that performance is flawless. She's just not getting in. The competition's too much this year, and I think that Fernanda Torres, with the international appeal, she does get in. It's sad to say that we have Saoirse Ronan for The Outrun with a magnificent performance. She's one of my favorite actresses. And then also Nicole Kidman, my favorite of all time, in Baby Girl, not getting in at Oscars. I'm pretty sure that's not happening. Unfortunately, I don't know why she was going to be nominated for Being the Ricardos, for Lion, and other films, and then she's snubbed here. That just seems ridiculous for me, but Baby Girl is a pretty intense film. I think of May December, and I think of it as kind of getting shut out except for screenplay, and it's kind of like evidence that these really intense sexual films that are a little bit against the grain, they're really hard to get into the Academy Awards at this point. I don't know why. I mean, Promising Young Woman, yes, but Saltburn, we don't see Saltburn, we didn't see May December. So I think Baby Girl, it doesn't get into anything this year at the Academy Awards, and that includes Nicole Kidman. And I think we're gonna look back in 10 years and be like, that was a mistake. Why did we include this person? Why did we include that person? It's not evident now, and I know that some folks have a certain bias towards who we should not be talking about, but Nicole Kidman doesn't get in, and that's very sad. So my predicted 5 are Cynthia Erivo in Wicked, Demi Moore for The Substance, Mikey Madison in Anora, Carla Sofia Gascon in Emilia Perez, and Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. So for Best Picture, I'm really not going with my heart here. I'm going with the stats. I'm going with kind of the points breakdown that I do for myself. I do every single year, and I usually get 9 or 10 correct since there's been 10 nominees. I remember I had the Triangle of Sadness in because of Cannes, and I had my whole breakdown and I haven't been missing much, so I'm gonna go with my gut instinct. Even though I feeling a little uncomfortable about it, I just trying to detach and do what the numbers say. So here we go. I think that The Brutalist, Anora, A Complete Unknown, Wicked, and Conclave are all locks for Best Picture. They're not getting in. They're all locks, period. The next two I have are The Substance and Dune Part 2. I think Dune Part 2 is a little bit above The Substance, to be honest, but I have those in as well. Actually, The Substance I have is a number 9 in terms of my stats, but I think it's just a little bit higher than it actually is because of the international appeal, because of Demi Moore's performance, by how unique that film is, and like how, honestly, if you think about it, The Substance is like the top film that people have been talking about all year, really. So I have that at number 7, but it's really at number 9. I'm bumping it up a little bit more. So the last two films, I've been going back and forth between September 5, A Real Pain, Sing Sing, Nickel Boys, as well as Challengers. And then I'm Still Here is kind of like floating in the back of my head after All We Imagine in Light has pretty much been shut out by BAFTAs, and there hasn't been as much like talk about it. There's no performances in it that people are really like pushing forward in terms of Oscar categories, whereas Fernanda Torres is, coming with I'm Still Here. Honestly, when I looked at the stats, when I did my breakdown, I kept putting Sing Sing in or out or in or out, but I have it out now. It's at my number 11. September 5 is at my number 12. So I have, for my last remaining spots, A Real Pain and Nickel Boys. So when I look at the list, I feel like this makes sense. I think compared to my other predictions in different categories, yes, I had Sing Sing and Adapted Screenplay. Yes, I shut out Nickel Boys and Cinematography, but something about it at the end of the day just screams like a Best Picture nomination. I don't see it being shut out. If it is, I'll be very sad. I really wish we could just see Nickel Boys and Sing Sing both here. A Real Pain doesn't need to be nominated for Best Picture. I think Best Supporting Actor and Best Screenplay are enough for that film. It doesn't need the Best Picture of the Year nomination. But when I watched the film, I thought about it, and it felt like something that is very uncontroversial. The voters will all love it, all have it on their number 7 or 6 or 7 on their list, maybe, or just everyone has it on their top 10. And the PGA nomination really solidified that for me. The AFI top 10 inclusion also solidifies it for me, so I do have it in. I won't be upset to see it gone. Not saying it's a bad film, but I'd rather have Sing Sing there. So my predictions for the best films of 2024 as voted by the Academy in Best Picture are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, Nickel Boys, A Real Pain, The Substance, and Wicked. Let me know what you think about my predictions below in the comments. Really excited about tomorrow morning. I wonder how many of these I'm gonna get right, what's gonna be snubbed, if I'm gonna have any like little things like Carlos Diaz coming in with a little surprise nomination. Is Amelia Perez going to be getting all the love it's been getting all season? Is it going to be into cinematography? Is it going to be an adapted screenplay and director? Is it going to be is Selena Gomez getting in? Who knows? I don't think so. Okay, so that wraps up my predictions for all the major categories besides the short films. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow morning, but here's hoping that we don't see any crazy snubs that like really get people angry on Twitter and social media. I just want to have a calmer year. I want to be like surprised in a good way and not in a bad way when the nominations are announced. And I better see Cynthia Erivo there. If Cynthia Erivo gets snubbed for Wicked, I'm gonna be pretty mad. I think she was just unbelievable in that film, and to have her without Ariana Grande would be a mess. So let's not do that, Academy. Yeah, so I'll see you on the other side with my live reaction of the Oscar nominations. Oh my God, it's finally here. No more delays, please. Imagine we get to the morning and I'm up and it gets delayed. There's bigger things in life, but it could happen. You never know. But yeah, I'll see you on the other side with my live reaction of the Oscars nominations tomorrow morning. This is Oscars Obsession. My name's Siobhan. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think below about my nomination predictions. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. Stay safe, everyone out there in LA, especially. I hope to have a wonderful Oscars nominations morning. I'll see you on the other side. Logging up for now. Take care.